So
25.
hot.
It is so hot.
How hot? It's
Yeah,
Africa hot.
yeah, it is. It is Africa hot. It is Sahara. It is sub-Saharan hot. It is so hot that
So hot, I need my straw hat from Hewlett and Dunn.
that's right. And you know what? You know what they're calling the weather forecast up here? It's in the mid to upper 90s. Heat index is about 110. It's copy and paste, they call it. Okay. Hey,
Get your sunscreen and your
Yes.
Ray-Bans and your straw hats.
and your cellular phone and take a picture of the QR code. We are broadcasting live on X, Twitter, Facebook, YouTube, 7 channels, and then it goes all over the place. Share and reshare. And as always, we really appreciate your comments from the audience, your questions. We're going to have Jason Caldwell, AU Undercover, one of the absolute best and most honest guys reporting on sports. We'll also have Dudley Dawson, Hogville.net right there as well, and Vince Ferrara, double up on that, sports animal in Knoxville. So a lot of questions, I know, with people about the SEC dominance, and Paul Finebaum brought that up yesterday, Brendan, and,
Popping off again.
well, but look, does the SEC have a dominant team heading into the 25 college football season?
Yes,
And who would that be?
Texas.
Texas is a dominant team in terms of media exposure and hype and all. Who is the best team? Well, and they've got to
That's the
beat
question.
Georgia.
Georgia's pretty good, but, Georgia's got to put it together like
Yeah.
they didn't do it last year.
Yeah, and they've got, look, Georgia has to come up with some receivers. There's no question about that. But you look at Georgia, Alabama, Texas, LSU, Texas A&M's getting a lot of attention. I think Tennessee losing Nico Iamaleava, and now they have Aguilar coming in. There's a lot of questions about them. He's got to not turn the ball over so much. The dominance that the SEC was on, winning 14 of the last 19 national championships.
Mm-hmm.
The last 2 years, Michigan and Ohio State have won it. I think before Jason joins us, what is happening is that those number 2 and number 3 guys on your depth chart in these SEC programs, especially the top programs, they're not sticking around as much as they used to. So they're going to Indiana. They're going to SMU, Arizona State. They may go to Boise State. They'll go to Wisconsin. They'll go to Miami. They'll go somewhere. Now, flip that, Brendan, to Clemson. They've got a couple of offensive linemen that have 40-plus starts. They've got a veteran team that has played together, that's bonded. Cade Klubnik's been there a long time, 5-star out of Austin, Texas, Westlake. So Clemson, the way Dabo's doing it, he's got a lot working in his favor right now, and he doesn't play in a conference top to bottom as tough as the SEC, Brendan.
Well, I agree. And, it's interesting because we were having the conversation because a lot of recruiting information out this morning. And those who don't follow it, it's hard to talk about the headlines because most people don't follow recruiting this close. And we don't either because it's that's one person's job. But there are a lot of headlines this morning for all teams in the SEC. And Rob, Auburn is one of them. What's going on with Hugh Freeze and what's going on in your part of the world?
Well, my guess with Auburn is, and Jason Caldwell is going to be on in a moment. It's public knowledge that he has prostate cancer. They feel like they caught it early, and that's being treated. Like it or not, that's probably being used against him in recruiting. Number 2, I think Auburn could promise early playing time in his first few recruiting classes because the roster was, in my opinion, the worst in my lifetime when Hugh Freeze took over in December of 22. So that now the roster has been upgraded significantly. So you can't sell immediate playing time like you could. You've lost 3 4-star. Jermichael Garrett, apparently that was a mutual parting of ways. He's a linebacker. He's gone. But the other 2, Shadarius Tootle and Devin Carter, whose father, Dexter Carter, is a legacy at Florida State. He was committed to him, then to Auburn. Now he's now backed out of his commitment to Auburn. But the way it works, I think, I'm going to ask Jason this, But I won't be surprised if Auburn didn't using a strategy of we're going to just hold our powder, keep it dry, and try to flip a bunch of guys in December. All that being said, and again, I want to ask Jason about this. Auburn and Hugh Freeze, you got to start winning. You got to start winning. You've had arguably, I believe that 11-14 start in the first 2 years is the worst of any Auburn coach football-wise in the modern era. That's got to change. Yeah. You look at Florida. These are big machines. Auburn and Florida, who've been struggling for the last few years. I think I've got Florida to win 10. I think they split the Texas schools, and I think Ole Miss beats them. But I think they're going to be really good. It starts with the center, Jake Slaughter. I mean,
well, yeah. And by the way, I don't know him personally. I know the family and the community that Jake comes from here in Ocala. He's an Ocala boy.
There you go.
And he is a part of some of the best group of people that he could possibly put himself around here in Ocala. Yeah, I won't pull out names because they're really great humans. Yeah. They're parents on my daughter's soccer team, and Jake is one of the good guys. Like he comes from that sport, and he's done it the right way, and he's worked his ass off to get where he is this year. I'm excited for him to see what he's an elite center, and he is very, very, very talented, very intelligent, and he comes from good stock.
Yeah, Ocala is just the more I learned about Ocala, the more I love it. And I believe the offensive line's pretty damn good at Florida this year. And Paul Finebaum, Paul's right. SEC dominance right now, is it an end? I don't agree with that, but it's questioned. And the Big Ten is pushing hard. People don't think about this, but I know Iowa's not real flashy, but the Hawkeyes have won 10 games four times in the last decade. They're one of only like 5 programs in college football, Division I, to win 8 or more games in 9 of the last 10 seasons. Mm-hmm. They didn't do it in 2020 because they had a shortened season. They were 6-2. So, steady is the way. Kirk Ferentz is talking about the current climate in college football. He embraces it. He said, one thing you learn about as you get older is how much you don't know. So you better be listening. I think best advice my parents have always told me is have friends older than you, have friends your age, and have friends younger than you. But don't be friends with your kids. But that being said, Brendan, you look at Florida, look at Auburn. They're not going to be spinning their wheels forever. So as they rise, what other SEC programs are going to take a hit? Then you start looking around. We'll talk with Dudley about Arkansas today. We'll talk with Vince about Tennessee. Season ticket sales. Look at all these SEC schools. They're selling everything that they can get their hands on. People want to buy it. But I think the dominant part is you look at Ohio State.
Well, that's what I was going to say. To me, it's who's going to go out and beat Ohio State, because 24 million, something like that this year, maybe more tthan they spent last year.
Yeah, I won't be surprised.
I mean, that's tough to beat because, and this is where this is where his Finebaum's message here is skewed to me. And I think this is, and I like Paul Finebaum. Sometimes it's ratings, sometimes it's not. Sometimes, I don't disagree with what he's saying, but you don't run the gauntlet in the SEC like you do in the Big Ten and everything else. So the path to playoffs, the path to all this is so much easier day in and day out, because when you play in the SEC, I don't care what anyone says. And we've had people on recently, athletes, coaches, everyone says on our show with Ronnie Sanders. Yeah. Everyone says, look, I don't care who you are. You're a coach in this league. SEC is the best. You get the best talent, and it's really hard to go out and beat the worst team in the SEC. Who's the worst team? Bottom 2 teams, Rob.
Mississippi State.
And Mississippi State is good.
Yeah.
They're real good. In fact, we've had a lot of conversations recently on how good they actually might be.
Yeah. Their offense is going to be good with Jeff Lebby. And that's the thing. I don't think the SEC has 2 or 3 really elite teams this year. Right. But 1 through 16, it is the best league in America. And I also think that because of what is happening, I think schools are starting to double down and triple down on their NIL commitments. But I do think, because Claudia Wilkins' decision from the Ninth Circuit Court out in California, the 20.5 million or 21.5 million house settlement.
Mm-hmm.
How's that going to be treated? Are some collectives just going to go the way of the dodo bird and the kiwi and the ivory-billed woodpecker and disappear? Because they're going to say, now we got 21.5 million, that we'll just use that.
Well, don't the collectives disappear now that the universities can be directly involved in the payments and all that stuff?
That's what I'm saying. You wonder if they will. So
they got to go. Because the universities hate the collectives. I don't think they ever liked them. And we've seen a rollover of collectives. Like Florida had one collective, and they had to start another collective after the whole mess they did with Jade Rashada. But and by the way, just so everyone knows, and I know this for a fact, that there are also secret collectives that go after the elite players. That there's the collectives that go for softball and all this, but then there is the other collective that's probably more of the bag man collective people. TBM. That's still part of it. That's still a thing. And Jason Caldwell just popped in. I don't want to waste our time, so we're bringing him in right now. Jason Caldwell from AuburnUndercover.com. Good morning, Mr. Caldwell.
Good morning, guys. How are y'all? Y'all good?
Good. We're having a discussion. A lot of people are texting me and asking questions about what's going on in Auburn. I watched the podcast that you and Christian Clementi did yesterday on the AU Undercover site, which, by the way, folks, got 97.2 million page views last year. I'm probably account for 1.6 million of those, Jason.
Probably.
I mean, but you really are. You're what I call a truth broker. You kept that poker face the whole time Harsin was there about recruiting. I said, Jason, isn't there going to be a crack? And you were like, no. you just kept, but you explained about what's going on in recruiting. A lot of people, I had a question from a viewer. He texted me. I wish you'd have put it on here. Question for Jason. Are the Auburn powers that be and the money guys all in conflict again and creating this massive disruption in recruiting? What is it? But you've got your ear on the ground at Auburn better than anybody.
No, that's not it. I mean, because the money folks, powers that be, in reality right now, you're supposed to have a salary cap. And I heard Braden talking about it, it's like we've now opened up the entire door again. It was much better last year at this time when you knew however much money you raise, that's what you're going to get. Now we're supposed to have a salary cap, but that has not kept people from still offering this money after money after money that will not in any way fit under the salary cap. And so you got either one of two choices right now: lie or try to figure it out. And I think Auburn has gone the way of, hey, let's see what this thing's going to look like. And it's probably costing some guys in June because they're going, look, under $15 million salary cap.
Yeah.
With Cam Coleman returning, with Malcolm Simmons returning, Eric Singleton has another year of eligibility. So you have to account to maybe that guy returns. But you got Perry Thompson, you got Bryce Kane, you got Sam Turner. We can't offer him a wide receiver $1 million.
Yeah.
And so how does it work in a $15 million salary cap situation? Right now, you take care of the guys that are currently on your roster and figure it out in recruiting and go, look, you have the opportunity to get there. Most people, well, I won't say most, there are some that aren't playing that way. There are some that are just going ahead and go, well, we're going to get you that money. Yep. Well, it's got to go through NIL Go. It's got to get approved, all those things, but it's being promised. That's part of it. Part of it for Auburn is you're going to have to go out and win games. That's part of it. That's part of this too. But I think a bigger part of it right now is that the rules are still all over the map. They've tried to fix it, and at every stopping point, it gets worse. Mm. And right now, it's worse than it's ever been. I don't care what anybody says.
Well, I agree.
They can tell me, and I'm wrong. It's worse than it's ever been because now you're getting paid, and there's bags, and there's people going, we'll continue to pay guys other ways too. There are supposed to be rules, and there's none.
Well, I'm sorry, I wasn't trying to interrupt you there, Jason, but you make great points. And Rob and I were discussing it, recently. I think we had a show. It's called "Is the Bag Man Back?" And I think now The reality is like, we had this, sort of like, this way we did things, unwritten. Now it seems like we just made it a whole bigger deal, and there's way more elements to track. And now we can't figure. Now you can hide it so much more.
It's hidden in plain sight now with an NIL deal. They go, well, because you're supposed to have everything over $600. I wonder how many of these are going to get turned down, because now you can go, well, I own a business and I'm going to get this guy to be on a billboard for me, and we're going to give him $500,000. Well, wow. You're not getting your money back for that.
Right. Right.
There's no return on investment, but it's a way to get money. And it's crazy. It's really crazy.
I feel like where's this franchise tagging? Like, there's got to be something that's got to be able to protect some of these players.
I'm glad you brought it up, because that's my point in all this right now, is that there has to be some protection on the other end. So at some point, you're going to have to go, okay, we're giving you this money, but you got to give us 2 years. It can't be unrestricted free agency for the entire roster every year. It can't happen.
Yeah.
Because what happens is the guy has a really good year, and you said, okay, look, next year, here's our deal we're giving you. Well, then the next year he goes, nope, I had a better year than that. I'm renegotiating. Well, that's okay. But in the real world, it doesn't work that way. You renegotiate at the end of your contract. Okay, we're going to start having holdouts in college football. It's going to happen.
Well, we already sort of have it, and Florida, we've seen some of that. The guy went to Texas A&M.
Think about
the lineman that wanted all of these, like it was a writer for a comedian. He wanted the blue M&Ms and the right Gatorade, and he wanted to play in third down more often, and he wanted to get in more involved. I mean, that's crazy to me, especially in the SEC. Because you just didn't do that in the SEC. You never talked to your coach or went to that.
Look, I'm going to throw something at you too. That you talk about, like Tom Brady and players with the Patriots would stay and maybe play for a little bit less under to keep the salary cap in control, but they made so much money on the side in endorsements. So right now, the two biggest winners from the Claudia Wilkins settlement are billable hours for accountants and attorneys.
No question about it. Yeah, because here's the thing. In reality, because I was having this discussion last night with someone, and you go, in real, true NIL worthy dollars, how many guys and how many kids in college athletics last year had where you go like, well, yeah, that person absolutely has a platform to do that. There's not many of them.
Yeah,
true NIL. There's not a whole lot of them.
Yeah.
And so, yes, the winners right now are the lawyers and the agents who are lining up to go, well, give me part of that settlement because I'm going to represent you. Or right now it's, hey, I'm going to be your agent. You're getting a deal for $500,000 from this school. And they're taking like 10, 20% of this stuff, which is not, I mean, it's way over the top. It's not all of them, but there's some. It's the part of this now that, yes, it's become Morgan & Morgan and some of those folks all over again. Like that's who's getting part of this.
I'll tell you an interesting thing. I have a friend who's a professional sports agent. And he said he's a Hall of Fame football player. Was looking at his bill, and it said at the bottom, some documents, at the bottom of each page, it had in parentheses 4%. So he looked at 1 page, 2 page, 3 page, 4 page, 5 page. He goes, "You're charging me 20%? And if I turn the next page 24, he goes, no, it's a straight 4% total, for everything." But I remember when these collectives first came out, Jason, and I'm not going to name the schools, they were wanting 20% or more to represent these guys. That's insane.
Actually, it was more individual, Rob. Some of the lawyers and people running the collectives, a la at Florida, were accused of taking 20% off the top of some particular quarterback that didn't play at Florida, Jaden Rashada's deal. That was a lot of the grumblings, is that, these guys were siphoning off of it. Like, oh, well, I get this 20%. I don't understand. Yeah. That was never part of the rules.
Well, Jason, I mean, and you're right. So I just think that what Auburn's doing, it's just my take is, they're waiting to see what happens. They're going to have a lot of cash. And then if Freeze wins 9 or 10 games this year, they're going to be choosing not recruiting. That's just my theory.
Well, and part of it is you have to figure out how this thing's going to work. And nobody still knows how it's going to work because you're still in the infancy stages of NIL Go. What's going to get approved? If it's just as simple as submitting paperwork and trying to have a little, a couple of references for anything over $600, then it's not going to change. It's just going to be a different way of doing it. But if it's legitimately going to be difficult to get a deal because, a random, freshman, linebacker that's a good player, that guy is probably not a $500,000 NIL deal guy because nobody's going to know who he is outside of maybe the people that are recruiting.
Yeah.
If that's legit, then it's going to make it, where there's actually a cap. But if you're getting pretty much anything, then, as Brendan said, then you start to be, well, hey, it's over the table, under the table, in between the table, and under the legs, right? And I based on the past and what we've seen from the NCAA, that's what I believe is going to happen. And so right now, you're trying to play the long game if you're Auburn. Other folks are going, look, we don't trust the long game. We don't believe that's going to happen. So we're going to continue to play the game we're playing. Well, and so you got two choices.
All right, here's my thing. In the financial world, when you're talking to a client about their money, you want to under-promise and over-deliver. The worst thing I would imagine is if you promise a recruit all this money and stuff, and then come December, you got to change all that. That is not a conversation I want to have.
No, I think that's part of it. And my kind of the description I've had is, are you trying to win June or are you trying to win December? And I think Auburn is saying, hey, we want to try to win December. The thing that has made all this difficult is the calendar, the way things have changed. Yeah. So players have unlimited official visit opportunities. So do teams. But you only have one visit to a school. So what I believe is going to happen is, I believe in late October, November, December, you're going to have a brand new board of potential recruits that haven't visited you that are going, okay, well, I didn't get what I was supposed to get. Now I'm going to take a look at this school because I haven't visited them before. I kind of like them. I think we're going to see some of that, but only if this thing pushes through, the hard salary cap goes through, and along with that comes some sort of, guideline that actually is a guideline. But right now, I don't know that anybody knows exactly what's going to happen, and it keeps moving every day with every lawsuit that comes out and everything that changes, and so it's as messed up a system as we've seen. Like I said, last summer was better because at least you knew, hey, you know what, I can recruit as much as I raise. So you're okay. Well, now you're just left at the mercy of, depending on quote unquote NIL deals and how much more you can get on the side for prospects and for players, and can you sign your own roster? I mean, it's insanity.
Well, and another thing, Jason, I know you got a busy day ahead of you. I think the canary in the coal mine here is that the way Auburn's recruiting was last year at this time, top 3, top 5, right now 61st in the country. You've lost 3 commitments in the last week and a half. One of them, it looked like a mutual parting of ways, and I believe that. The other 2, you didn't want to lose. But I think there's a lot of it's a chess match right now. And this is getting to be, there's 2 collectives at Auburn, Ever to Conquer and On to Victory. I know someone with one of them. They have money, but they're not. It ain't stupid money, and they're pretty smart people. I like what you said. So close us out, and also I recommend everyone with a set of ears watch the podcast on AU Undercover with Kristen Clemente and Jason Caldwell. It was yesterday. It'll explain this in detail from two guys that know what they're talking about.
Yeah, Rob, and one of the things that before we go, I want to touch on is like I went and looked last night. I think there are only 13 players on this Auburn roster, maybe four. There may have been a 14th scholarship players that don't have any eligibility remaining. So you're talking about 70 some odd guys that you have to try to plan on keeping guys that you think you want to win with for 26.
Yeah.
So that's part of this too, is that, okay, you have a salary cap that you're going, well, what do we think he's going to be worth in 2026? We have to count on having that money because, and I was posed this question by someone, who's more valuable, Cam Coleman, Malcolm Simmons, or a freshman high school wide receiver? Unless it's Jeremiah Smith, there's not a more valuable freshman wide receiver than so you got to take care of those guys. You got to take care of the DeMarcus Riddicks and those guys. And so that's part of this right now is you're having to plan budget ahead for the unknown because you don't know how much this person's going to be worth after next season. But you got to think about it and go, well, maybe that's it. So all of that being said, it is a job that I would not want to have right now. It's a really difficult situation in every sport, basketball, baseball, everything. And so, but we'll try to cover it as much as possible. Come check us out at auburnundercover.com and look us up.
Well, and Jason, you know, and we're going to talk with Dudley Dawson, hogville.net here, say hello to one another because y'all are two of the guys that
– One of the best.
Yeah, two of the best. I mean, and Vince Ferraro be on here, but y'all are out there getting the stories. And what I respect so much about both of you is the fact that you're not going to say something unless you've checked at least 3 sources. That is true grit journalism. And Jason, I think that if I'm an Auburn fan, I would be saying they're not stupid. They know something's going on, and they have some smart people. Now, you don't want to be losing kids, but I wouldn't bet against them, is what I'm saying. So.
Well, and I think it's going to be a small class to begin with. So that's part of this. Part of it is you're betting on your 26 roster because of the way you recruited the last 2 years. I think that's part of this too. I talked to the baseball coaches yesterday, and they're like, we went heavy, and it showed up on the field this year with a bunch of really talented freshmen. Went light this year because you knew it was going to be really difficult to get that same group of freshmen. So you go pick a few transfers, and then you go heavy again. I think you may see some of those things. The Alabama and Ohio State and Georgia, they've won a lot of football games too. So when you do that, you're going to get more of those players, even if you have guys stacked up. Maybe for other programs, it's going to take winning, and it's going to take a little strategy involved as well. And so we won't know who's right until we may not know who's right until 2028, but it'll be December before you kind of figure out how this thing's going to shake out.
The pride of Sylacauga, the marble capital. I agree.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Dudley.
Yeah, I was going to say, Jason, you remember when we used to cover sports instead of business and legal issues? And
it is. It's not nearly as much fun as it used to be. That's for sure. Now having to do this side of things, I don't watch NFL or those things for a reason because I didn't like that part of the game.
Yeah. And
now it's worse in our sport than it is in those leagues because at least there is a contract. But here we are.
And Jason, the only reason I asked about it is because it's such a topic. So many people are asking me.
But
when you come on next week, we're going to talk some football, chin straps and helmet busting because that is, I'm with you. I'm up at the crack. I'm up before sunrise on a football Saturday for college. I'm on the couch if I'm in the house, dozing in and out of a nap watching NFL. That's just the difference in the two. So thank you so much.
Yeah, and I hope we're not heading that way in our sport too. We'll see. So
me too. All right, Jason, take care. Talk to you next week. I'm telling you what, Dudley Dawson, hogville.net, at his backyard at Heber Springs. Vince Ferrara, the sports animal up in Knoxville. Interesting discussion, guys. I know y'all saw where Paul Finebaum is questioning. Brendan and I were talking about it before Jason came on about SEC dominance. Does the SEC have an elite team this year? Brendan thinks it's Texas. I don't think we have 2 or 3 teams like we've had in the past with Alabama, Georgia, and LSU that are elite, because there's questions about quarterback with Georgia, about Alabama, but LSU has Garrett Nussmeier, but they've had him for several years. I don't know. So let's get started, guys, with what is happening. Here's a question. They're already coming in. Dudley, RS Sports. How do Arkansas fans feel about seeing Jalen Williams win an NBA championship with the Bricktown? That's what they call Oklahoma City, the Oklahoma City Thunder.
They feel great about it with him and Isaiah Joe, who played high school basketball together at Fort Smith Northside and now became, I think it's the second high school teammates ever to win an NBA championship on the same team. And the other one was LeBron and Tristan Thompson. But yeah, I mean, they feel great. Both John Calipari and Eric Musselman were in the arena there the other night when they won it and got pictures with their, Kentucky and Arkansas players. So yeah, I think they're happy about that. It brought a smile to their face after baseball.
Vince, got one for you. How much concern is there in Knoxville about a plethora, that's today's word, plethora of UT pitchers entering the transfer portal?
It's a great question, and it's something that is eye-opening in terms of the volume of players that have entered the portal. But I think the biggest reason to not panic is the fact that this is because of the roster management that they have now in baseball. Going to 34 roster spots, all of them can be full scholarships, but you can't carry more than the 34. And Tennessee and a lot of other big-time programs have taken advantage of that and had 50-plus players, at times 51. So you think about that. All right, you can offer full scholarships, but you basically got to cut 17 guys. Oh, by the way, all of these great programs, the Tennessees, the Arkansas, the LSUs, you go on, and Dudley knows this. They have a huge signing class. Tennessee has 25 in their signing class. So you had 51. You're bringing in, say, for Tennessee's sake, 25. That's 76. You got to get to 34. It's a lot. And Tennessee has had 24 players hit the portal, 18 of those pitchers. That's what I think, to the question from RS Sports, is the volume of pitchers. But that's the area that Tennessee has used, and they're not alone in this, as a development opportunity. A lot of guys that have Tommy John surgery, they'll be able to not be on the roster. They can get better, basically, medical red shirt, and then they can jump onto the roster the following year. That's going to happen with the big-time prospect in Anson Siebert, a 6'8" right-hander. They were so excited about last year. He missed this year. So he'll be a guy you add to the mix, but he wasn't on the sort of official, roster. And they have a bunch of other guys that didn't play. That's the large part of what's hitting the portal, is guys that have not played, and then some guys that have played a small role. So they haven't been devastated by this starter and this key contributor, things like that. It's guys that you thought could develop in the future that, are either going on their own, seeing the writing on the wall of the compressed numbers, or they've said, we don't have room for you. Here's the deal. And I bet that's going to happen for Tennessee and a bunch of other programs with their signing class. You can't have, what are you going to do? Have 25 of your 34 be true freshmen from the signing class? No way. Oh, by the way, you're adding in the portal, so that ups your number even more. And Tennessee's had 7 portal guys, 2 JUCOs, in addition to the 25 in the signing class. So the point is all these programs have to cut a ton of players, and then it's going to trickle down and give a lot of other programs a really good depth.
Yeah.
Yeah, I want to point out that too. I've been getting a lot of questions lately. Golly, Dudley, the 10 people have jumped in the portal. How's Arkansas? Is Arkansas be okay? Well, yeah, 8 of them didn't play a lick this year. They all redshirted, and the reason they redshirted was because they just weren't good enough to be on the roster at this point. And so they all have looked for better situations for themselves, or were told to look for better situations for themselves. I mean, there were several of them that didn't even travel to Omaha because they just weren't going to play, and they better go ahead and find out where they want to go. Arkansas has 19 signees, high school and junior college coming in. They've already got 5 portal guys, and they're only going to lose 8 to 10 guys. So, much like Vince was saying, it's not in the 70s, but it's probably in the 60s that they have to get it trimmed down to 34. And Coach Van Horn and many other coaches have been talking about this the whole year. Man, you get a rash of injuries next fall, you're going to be in trouble come January.
Well, the numbers that you're talking about, having to cut down from 76 to 34, it's crazy. And then, speaking of baseball, I want to go back to the World Series last week. I mean, the way Arkansas lost, that was a tough one. I mean, but that's a program, Dave Van Horn, 10 College World Series, 2 at Nebraska, 8 at Arkansas. If you're a fan of Arkansas baseball, it's an elite program that keeps coming short of winning the whole thing. But Dave Van Horn is a great coach, and you're rolling at Arkansas. Tony Vitello has a national championship. He's from the Dave Van Horn coaching tree. I mean, look at those 2 programs. They're great programs. What?
If the ball doesn't drop, ball doesn't drop in 2018, there would have been 8 different SEC champions during the last 8 years on the field. But Oregon State obviously got that one, and it's haunted Arkansas fans. But man, I think this one last Wednesday night, I guess it was, and I remember that because it was my anniversary. And by the way, my wife had a great time, great meal. We had a great evening until the ball game, and then she was, being a fan, she was rather upset about it. And I tried to tell her, look, it's just a game, the run or rock, Social Security, this. And she said, I don't want to hear any of that. So that's kind of my fan basis there. I'm able to kind of judge it on that. But it was tough for Arkansas last week. Consistency has been the name of the game here. He's got everything checked off except that one box. And he and I probably have 5 to 10 years left doing this stuff. And I know we both would like to see him get that, not because I root for Arkansas, but because he's been a good dude. And it's, that's heartbreaking for fans, as well.
Well, think about life, how close you keep getting to some invention that you're working on or having a patent. Eventually he's going to get there because he ain't going to let up. He's just going to keep doubling down. Vince Ferrara, let's get to this question now that Paul Finebaum, I heard a guy one time in the bookstore in Auburn say, I look at old Paul Finebaum on the TV at night. And I'm like, Finebaum? Paul Finebaum questioning far be it from Paul to bring up a subject for controversy or for debate. He is incredible what he does. But he's right to question this, Vince. Do we have an elite team? Is SEC dominance in question? Because remember what Nero said. Rome burned while Nero fiddled. The Visigoths, the Huns, and the barbarians, and the various Germanic tribes descended upon the gates of Rome, and everybody was in there drunk with power, high taxes, and debauchery, and they lost the empire. Is the SEC, is Nero going to have to say something?
I don't think that the SEC can claim dominance right now. Dominance means that you're so far ahead of everybody else. So whether you are going to debate that they're the best conference because of the depth, maybe you can have that conversation, but it's a debate. You're not dominating the sport and running away with things. You don't have their streak of national championships. Well, by the way, the Big Ten has scoreboard in championships, national championships, the last 2 seasons as well. Going into the preseason polls, if you look at Bill Bender, he had a compilation of, the top 11 preseason rankings that are out there. The SEC had 2 when those numbers shook out, 2 of the top 7. That's not dominating. And on top of that, back to your original question, Rob, dominance is at least with having one team that stands above and beyond everybody else. Those were Nick Saban Alabama teams. That is not the case anymore.
That's right.
I think Texas might be the best team. Georgia often is in the conversation, depending what they have a quarterback, but that's a little bit of an unknown. And it gets back to what you were saying. Everybody's got some questions. So because of that, no, there's not a dominant team, and I don't think the SEC can claim that right now.
However, I'm told that Arch Manning is the greatest person to walk this earth since Jesus. I mean, I want to slow that down a little bit. When I've been around him, it's just been a few times. Seems like a great kid, great young man, and I'm sure he's going to have a great year. But anointing him the Heisman Trophy winner, anointing Texas the best team in the country. I'm going to wait and see how he plays, because as somebody said the other day, if he's so good, why was there a 7th round draft pick in the NFL?
That somebody was Steve Spurrier.
Yeah, I'll say that to counter that, Dudley. I do think he's going to be great. I think we had some sample size to see him. Maybe it wasn't the toughest of competition, but it's projecting. But I think he's going to be great. Greatest thing since sliced bread. Is he going to be like Peyton? I don't know about all that. I think he's going to be one of the best quarterbacks in college football. And then also, he to me, you can be a really good college quarterback and not be projected for the NFL. It doesn't always translate. So that's just an experience thing where Sarkisian just felt a little bit more comfortable, with a more experienced guy, and maybe it's just taken Arch a little bit more time. He hasn't bailed, so he apparently knew that he was going to get his opportunity. And it probably is going to work out for him. I think could be a really good story. If it does, great example for college athletics in the transfer portal.
And I'm not casting aspersions. I'm just saying they have anointed him the Heisman Trophy winner. I know that's what the national guys do and all that. I'm just saying, let's slow down. I have come out of Arkansas spring practices thinking this team's going to win 8-9 games. And I've said that way back in the day. I don't say that anymore. But as I've gotten older, I'm kind of slowing things down and getting kids out of my yard, that whole thing.
Well, I'm going to throw another one. Vince, John David Badur, Lee Hiddinger, a couple of friends of mine in the Touchdown Club in Memphis are watching right now, had a question about Aguilar, quarterback, about his turnovers. Again, Roman Harper watches a lot of tape, and he said, too many turnovers. But I'm going to throw this at you, and then you turn it into something edible. Josh Heupel, in the 4 years he's been the head coach at Tennessee, his quarterbacks have had a total of 14 interceptions. That's the stat that screams he'll fix this more likely than anybody else.
Yeah, and you gave that stat, and I presented that on the show, and I was a little bit off on those numbers. I apologize. It's 18, but the point is still the same. So my apologies for giving you that number incorrectly, but in resetting it is 18. But that's on me.
No.
Sorry, go ahead, Rob.
No, I was just gonna say, it's not your fault. It's that you do the research, and then unlike a lot of people out there in the public purview, you have the temerity to admit, I made a mistake. A lot of people just throw it against the wall like James Carville. I just hope something sticks on the wall, But you're right. I just think Josh Heupel is an elite coach of the quarterback. So let's keep going. That's a great stat.
Yeah, and we did a side by side on our TV show on Sundays, the Sports Source here in town, and you look at Pro Football Focus, and they do a great job of breaking down, what all the numbers are in different sections of the field behind the line of scrimmage, 0 to 10 yards, 10 to 20, and beyond 20. You look at the numbers between Nico and Joey Aguilar. And there's some things that favor Joey Aguilar. There's some things that maybe favor Nico, but then you have to have some context to them because some of the throws down the field. In throws beyond 20 yards, Joey Aguilar, 29 of 77, 36%, 9 touchdowns, 4 interceptions. Nico, just 16 of 50, 32%, 8 touchdowns, 3 interceptions. So the percentages are lower, but he's also throwing a lot less down the field. Now, why is that? Is that because he's risk averse? Is that because they're not calling him? Is that because the receivers aren't getting open and he's having to step up in the pocket and scramble around? That's where you kind of you can't just say, or this is this, so it's going to equal this for Joey Aguilar. And to your point of the interceptions, you have to take the competition into account and the level that he played at. Diego Pavia made the adjustment. There's been other guys that have made the adjustment from the group of 5 to a power forward, and it's worked out great for him. Others, it has not. But he's got to clean that up. Another thing is the middle of the field. He threw a ton more in the middle of the field than Nico did when he was at App State. Does that mean that he was not seeing coverages and he threw a ton more interceptions in the middle of the field? So does that mean he was taking unnecessary chances? Does that mean that they were calling plays, that he was going with what the play was called? So that's where the coaching will come into play. This kid can make all the throws, but I think they're going to like the gunslinger in him. And he's done a lot of good work trying to work on, what he can in the summer, working in that playbook, meeting with his teammates. But they've got to have the gunslinger in him without him being too much of a risk taker that is reckless. And I think that will give him a chance for bigger plays that they did not have as much with Nico a year ago.
Yeah, and I want to tie that into Arkansas. Yeah. Obviously, Taylor Green had a great year last year, but when he made a mistake, they had to pay for it. Basketball does a great job in the phrase points off turnovers. Yes. Certainly that it seemed like when he threw an interception last year, it was either taken back for a touchdown or they went deep into Arkansas territory. It just seemed like that was the case, and the numbers showed that. And I think that's where he's probably going to make his biggest stride this year in the risk-adverse thing. I like that phrase. He will still try to make some throws, but maybe, time and place will come into it a little bit more. And working with, a great quarterback coach and Bobby Petrino, he should take a step forward.
Yeah, and you go back and look, before Jackson Dart assumed the starting quarterback role at Ole Miss, Yancey Porter, who's on our show every week, Rebel Yell Hotline, said Jackson's more in the gunslinger mode that Lane Kiffin likes. And people, who is this guy? Well, pretty good career. He won 29 games in 3 years, first-round draft pick. I also think Taylor Green in year 2 under Bobby Petrino, this is a sleeper cell, Arkansas. I mean, they say what you want about Bobby Petrino, okay? I mean, he'd probably make a good prison guard, but he can coach his ass off. And that's what he's there for. And I would be Taylor Green's he's 6'6". You know him. I mean, he can run, he can do a lot of stuff. And the offensive line at Arkansas, the more time Sam Pittman's around those guys, they're better. All right, Vince, looking at so SEC, we talked about, is there an elite team in the league this year? Because there's 16 schools, and someone said, you can fly over and then you get individual, guys that cover. That Tennessee program really well. Give me an elite team, if there is one, or 2 or 3 teams that you think are borderline elite, and then Dudley, take it after that and answer the same question.
I think Texas is probably in the best position to be number one. Do they have a better roster than Georgia? I don't know that they've done that. Georgia has more of a question mark at quarterback, in my opinion, than Arch Manning is. I feel more confident about him than I do about Gunnar Stockton. Obviously, both of them have to prove themselves with a small sample size. Another thing that Texas has is, again, one of the 4 lighter schedules in the Southeastern Conference. I ran through and basically kind of ranked the schedules, in my opinion, for everybody in the league. Yeah. And last year, Texas had one of the easiest schedules. I have them at 13 this year, with Missouri again having the easiest schedule. So, it's a far cry with Texas coming into the league versus Oklahoma. in how difficult their trek is. Oklahoma play Michigan out of conference, and they play a bunch of teams that are either in top 25s or receiving votes. Almost everybody in the league. They don't have the bottom part of the league on their schedule like Tennessee and Missouri and Auburn do. So I think that favors Texas. Georgia doesn't have a over the top. They have kind of a bottom half, middle of the pack type of schedule. But I would put them right behind Texas in terms of the pecking order in the league. And then as far as someone, maybe on the outside that is trying to work their way up, and that's LSU. I think LSU's had a really good year in the portal. I believe in Garrett Nussmeier and taking that next step this year. I know he's a veteran and been there, and it's easy to kind of label him and what he's been. But I mean, his numbers are great. The leadership is there. There's some that think he could be the top pick in the draft next year. I gotta see it to believe that, but I still think he's going to be outstanding. So those would be, I think, my top three from the league, and maybe Alabama just after that.
All right.
And I think that Arkansas and other teams are going to improve. But as far as the top of the heap, I don't know that there's an absolute great powerhouse. I think there are a lot of teams that are going to be really, really good. And there's some, South Carolina, Florida, Missouri, some others that may be better than we think they are. And he just reeled off, if they've got that schedule again, then that helps them out. But I just don't know as Athlon arrives on the shelves and all those, and I look at all those, it's just hard for me to grab and say, other than Texas, that this team has enough talent and enough answers going into the season that they're going to be great. But very, very good. I can find a lot of those teams.
A couple of questions here. In SEC play last year, blank school led the conference in scoring in SEC games.
In SEC games, Ole Miss? No.
It's Texas A&M, 29.4 points a game.
Wow.
And that's what's hard to believe. And you think about the night that the wheels fell off the train. Remember when LSU played in late October down at College Station? That was crazy. And we're living in weird times. Auburn fans stormed the field to beat Texas A&M last year. You only do that against Alabama if you're Auburn. It's never happened in history. It's weird times. All right, so next question is, who had a better completion, percentage-wise last year, Marcel Reed or DJ Lagway?
Well, I mean, Marcel Reed was very limited. I would think it was Lagway.
Marcel's like a point better, but he didn't throw as many. But who do y'all both think are the best? Give me the top three quarterbacks coming back in your opinion in the SEC.
Dudley, you want to start?
Nussmeier. Mm-hmm. I guess Arch Manning and Taylor Green, and that's not because I'm here at Arkansas. It's because I sit here and watch them play a lot. And the others, and DJ Lagway would have to be in there as well. But Lenore Seller. There's several good ones. That's tough. The top three, but Nussmeier, is proven. Let's go with that.
How dare you leave Diego Pavia out of
Yeah, come on.
Another one.
Yeah, it's true. That's true, man. That's true.
I agree with that group. I might have Sellers ahead of Taylor Green. I do like Taylor Green. I think he will take that next step up. Another one is John Mateer at Oklahoma. I mean, there's some that think he was the top quarterback in the portal. Oklahoma got the top quarterback, Mateer from Washington State, and then Jay Knott, the running back from Cal, who was the top running back in the portal in some rankings. So, but their schedule was crazy tough. But I do think Mateer, he's another guy that can be a high draft pick. I would go Nussmeier, Arch, and then Lenore Sellers if I had to pick a top three. I'm a believer in Lenore Sellers, the dual threat. I still think he's good from the pocket. He's an energy guy. We'll see if they can replace a few guys on that South Carolina team. They may not be elite to where he can be in Heisman conversation or any of that, but he would I'd probably give him the edge at 3 in a pretty stacked with Mateer and some of those other guys right behind him.
If I were a school looking for a quarterback, I'd go to Pullman, Washington, to Washington State. Look at Cam Ward goes to Miami, #1 pick. John Mateer's stats are incredible.
Yeah.
3,326 yards last year. I think 29 touchdowns. He also rushed for 826 yards and 15 touchdowns. I think he's the top newcomer in the SEC this year. And I'm Dudley's right though too about Taylor Green. I mean, you just put somebody with Bobby Petrino, they're going to get better, or they're not going to be his quarterback. But guys, we'll wrap it up. Vince Ferrara, the sports animal in Knoxville, you've been up since probably 4 this morning. Tennessee fans, you want to start your day off to a great way? Get that app on your phone. Wake up in the morning, 3 straight hours of coverage from 99.1 The Sports Animal in Knoxville, Tennessee. And Vince, always love having you on. Please give us a retweet. We'll do the same for you, how we can help your brand. Let them know again how they can follow you, and you do the same, Dudley, and we'll say goodbye.
Yeah, appreciate it. And if we don't have the answers, we have people on that do. My partner, John Wilkerson, on vacation this week. So we had Jimmy Himes on Monday, who, of course, has been on the show a lot. Today, we had Ryan Callahan from Go Vols 24/7, who's awesome. And I asked him percentage chance that Aguilar, Merklinger, and McIntyre are the starting quarterbacks. He said he thinks it's less of a competition than what most people think. Aguilar 80%, Merklinger 15%, McIntyre, the true freshman, 5%. I thought those were interesting numbers. And the 3 representatives he thinks will be at media days: Miles Kitselman, tight end; Arion Carter, linebacker; Bryson Eason, defensive tackle. So we hit on a bunch of that stuff. So you can get all that content at 991thesportsanimal.com, and you can give me a follow on all the socials at Vince Sports, VINCE Sports.
Absolutely love it. Dudley?
Hogville.net. We cover all 19 sports Arkansas has, including stories on having the best baseball player in America and the best softball player in America, which was Bree Ellis and V. Eloy. So that was quite a story. Fearless Friday, you're going to be putting out some high school stuff as we go throughout the summer. But in the next week, I'm going to take a staycation. And I'm looking forward.
All right, relax, man. Take it easy and get ready for football season. Thank y'all both so much. We'll see you next week. Let me say something about Landers Ford. They are open every day of the week except Sunday, 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. Poplar and Houston Levy, where Germantown and Collierville meet. Why do you want to shop for a car, truck, or SUV at Landers Ford? It's simple. Ask for Brad Bellamy, the general manager. He'll make it easy to purchase a vehicle. He'll walk you through the process. They'll do everything humanly possible to have you driving off the lot. They are LandersFordMemphis.com. Service department will pick you up, bring you in. They are first class all the way. And the 25 Expeditions and Broncos and F-150s look great. Winter Timber Outdoors, Athens, Alabama, on top of the state. Building stores around the Southeast. 13,000 square foot store opens in Auburn early August. That is the plan. All your hunting and fishing needs, one-stop shop at Winter Timber. And Hewlett and Dunn Boot and Clothing Company. Let me say this. You're out and about in your yard. I got these snake boots right here from Danner. Got them at Hewlett and Dunn. They work. You'd have to be a Gaboon Viper. Couldn't even get through these things with his 2-inch fangs. Look, been a great show today for executive producer Brendan Martin. And all of you out there watching, man, we're continuing to grow. The only easy day was yesterday. Most often we see the face of Christ in the least among us. Go out and bless others. We're all blessed. And think about every day opportunities you have to get better and take advantage of. If a dog will bite, he'll do it when he's a pup. Good night, John Boy.